On December 16, 2013, the San Diego City Council directed its staff to develop a zero waste plan for the city. Rick Anthony, a worldwide zero waste consultant, presented the council with the zero waste resolution. April 26, 2014, and let's just talk about what it is that the City Council needs to do at this point to create this zero waste initiative for San Diego.
We can't get to sustainability without zero waste. Why? There's a couple reasons. One, Arnold Schwarzenegger encouraged the legislature to pass AB 32, the global warming bill, which basically said climate plans and reduced the greenhouse gases from California to a level set. As they went through the process and all the cities went through the climate plans, it turned out that number 1, 2, or 3, usually it was traffic, but farming and the landfill was the biggest generator of greenhouse gases. It's methane from the landfill, which is 30 to 75 times more deadly than just carbon. So it became a big issue. The state looked at that and said, if we recycled everything and upstream savings in terms of air emissions and traffic and digging, they used the EPA's waste assessment model, and they found out that if everything was recycled in California, it'd be the same as getting rid of all the cars. So the result was that it was AB 341 from West Chesborough who said the 50% goal for California was not enough in order to meet the governor's targets, and because of resources and jobs, we're going to go to 75%. And what they looked at is that if all this material was liberated from the landfill, that instead of one job at the landfill, it would be 250 jobs in reuse, recycling, and repair. And by the way, there was a recession happening at this time, and they needed to create jobs. So it was about greenhouse gases, but it was about resources, really, providing industry, and it was about jobs. And the other picture now became, well, wait a minute. If it's greenhouse gases at the landfill, isn't there a better way to handle these organics? Well, yes, of course, we put it back on the farms. We can conserve water. We have a drought. So by putting the organics back on the land, it's like 1/3 of that water doesn't have to be there because we got water retention. It's wood, it's yard trimmings, it's food. And then on the paper side, it's the tissue paper and the Kleenex and the food dirty paper that, yeah, you can make paper fiber out of it, but it's also a bulking agent that you can use to make compost. But the yard trimmings in San Diego already been collected anyhow, so mix those together and what you got is great farm stuff. So these are the big reasons that it all came to play. And what the state said to the city is, we're watching you.
So the zero waste initiative that was adopted by Austin, Texas, is that the benchmark for zero waste plans in America?
It was one of our first. It really was. Monterey, Oakland, San Francisco, but Austin was a citizens initiative to kill an incinerator, and then we wrote the plan. And they are into the full implementation of the plan in Austin, building composting facilities, mandating recycling. But we just finished I'd say the second generation of these new plans in Fort Collins, Colorado, and they hired us for waste minimization, but we wrote a zero waste plan, and they adopted the zero waste by 2030. We could look at 50 or 75, but if you say zero, we put everything on the table. And now we can really look at our community. And when they looked around, they said, well, I don't know who's doing this. And we said, well, who's your biggest business? Well, it's New Belgium Brewery. Well, they're a zero waste company. They came to the meetings. Yeah, we're 98%. So now if New Belgium can do it, why can't the city? And so it was an amazing thing. And what we found out is that we've been ignoring upstream. We've been we've been capturing the plastic and the metal and the glass. We do a good job, fairly good job. But what about the food? And what about feeding people? And what about the clothing? And what about reuse? And so now we're targeting back upstream because these are really economic generators in the community. Everybody participates in the dialogue. That's the other thing, is that we find out what people do and what they can do, and so everybody has a piece of this. So continuous improvement, because that's what we do. That's how we get to heaven.
And so a zero waste plan for a city is massive. It's a long-term commitment. What are going to be the components?
We would break up into reuse categories, all thrift stores, everybody who wants swap meets, all this stuff. Work out the category. My sense is ban all durables and reusables from the landfill. Charge a tipping fee. Then stores get them reused. We got enough clothing to clothe enough people in Mexico just from San Diego alone. My closet, my God. Then organics. The big piece here is half of what we have. The air board is saying, get it out of the landfill, do it by next year, or we're going to legislate it. Let's get a composting facility. Let's get the nurseries. Let's get the farmers. Let's make some rules here that allow us to have a couple composting facilities outside the county to feed our farms, and then remanage our organics. So that's the second one. The third one, recycling industries. We invite all the recyclers to come in, people to talk about. I'm going to make a stationery out of waste paper into new paper again. I found Stuff Paper Company actually does it. So where's the supply? Where's the demand? How do we make this all work together? And then the last one, special discards, take-back programs, and it gets bigger than that because there are rules we need to make that says that if you sell it in our community, it's not recyclable, it's not compostable, you need to take responsibility for what happens to that after it's done. And so those stakeholder meetings will be recorded. We will then put them into a report, and then the plan gets developed off that. What it really turns out to be in both Oceanside and Fort Collins was didn't have to increase the budget. Didn't have to increase the budget. You just have to change the way you're doing things. It's a matter of a few new rules. And we found in the city, as soon as the city said, yes, zero waste is the goal, the staff started smiling again because everything was now available. They say, oh, that needs to be recycled. Oh, you shouldn't have that anymore. We should work on a purchasing policy, those kinds of things.
The concept of product stewardship is part of a zero waste plan as well, and that is redesigning things at the front end so that when they're done, they either come back to the company or they're recyclable or composted.
Right. So I'll use baby diapers, my favorite. 6% of what we throw out. So in Oceanside, that's 6,000 tons of diapers. It's a problem. You bury them in a landfill. Is that what you build a landfill to diapers? No, you redesign that product so that it's compostable or recyclable, period. That's what you do. And so it's about time on this planet we start looking at stuff and say, oh, it has a half-life of 100 million years? Well, no, you can't do that. It's got to be recyclable. And in cradle to cradle, that's what McDonough says. There's an organic side that goes back to the land because that's our evolution. But the technical side, that has to go back into the product.
Understanding that Earth is an island, Easter Island was an island, Nantucket is an island, and they're mining their landfill for things. And so we have to get to the point where we understand that, and it's a culture change. So now let's get into the conversation of what does this zero waste initiative in San Diego mean to Joe Citizen?
What San Diego citizens have seen since 1990 has been a 25% recycling goal, and then the implementation of curbside collection in 2000. And people have got their blue bins and their black bins, and in 75% of the town they've got their green bins for the yard materials. And so most people in San Diego have a good feel for recycling. So what happens now, we all say, well, why can't I recycle this? And it really comes down to that stupid 1913 ordinance, which basically, in the beginning, was a great deal. Was said to the pig farmers, we want your putrescibles to feed the pigs, and we're going to sell the pigs to the city, and we'll collect them. Well, it was changed in 1985 to say not putrescibles, not food, waste. And what that did is made the city provide free garbage service for everybody, for everything. And by the way, in that old ordinance, we had the right to charge for service. In 1985, when they changed the ordinance, they took that away. So what we're sitting is an ordinance that says it's all waste and the city gets it all, and single families don't pay anything, and multifamilies and commercial properties do. It's really unconstitutional, but if we sued the city and made them do it for everybody, it would bankrupt the city. It's $50 million out of the general fund every year. So what's coming up in this ordinance is to involve the community into the decisions about how do we make this thing work, how do we create jobs, and how do we pay for it. And the answer, of course, is to change the ordinance one more time and say, pay as you throw. So a pay-as-you-throw system allows the city to charge a different price for the blue bin, the green bin, and the black bin. Everybody, property owner, pays for it. The rules are the same for everybody. That finances the whole system by itself, creates $50 million for the parks and the cops and the libraries to get back on track. It's equitable. It's better than making just single families not pay and everybody else. And when we sat down to the Taxpayers Association and explained this thing, the single family owner said, well, we want to go pay as you throw. We don't like the fact that everybody can waste as much as we want and there's no penalty for that. But what's going to happen through this whole dialogue is that We're going to show all the things that we really want to do, all the great benefits, $80 million of new money into the economy, plus the $50 million of savings is going to be really good for San Diego, and people are going to want to do this. And this will allow the politicians to feel comfortable to put it on the ballot.
How is the mindset, the culture, what's going to happen to these people that live in this city?
So I think the basic instinct to want to hunt and gather and share, barter, is going to be enabled by giving more opportunities, by making it available. That is, if you had an aluminum can that you had your drink in and you wanted to recycle, and you were in the mall, you would see a recycling bin. If you wanted to get rid of your clothing that you had too much because you got thin, you wanted to give it away, there'd be a pickup. You could either call a charity or there might be some other way to do it. So, but it'd be easy. It's the same thing with your sofa and your old chairs. Everything that you want to get rid of to make your life a little bit easier so you can get more stuff would be available for you to do it. And it wouldn't cost us any money. By reorganizing it, we would create more opportunities for jobs and more resources. My sense is that durable goods, whether it's a piece of plastic, old bowl that was cracked, wouldn't be allowed in the landfill. We would take it to a resource recovery park. I'd actually set up repairs industries within it to fix things, and they would be allowed to pick through this stuff and pick this stuff out. We'd capture this value in an organized manner and then allow the different entrepreneurs to come in. It's not the American dream to own a home. The American dream is to own your own business. We're entrepreneurs, we're country entrepreneurs. Why would we bury our resources in the ground? Liberate them. We'd create hundreds of thousands of jobs. There's a technical side to make it available, and secondhand, there's a consumer side, because look at, we buy this stuff. So if the public says, I love your product, I hate your package, change it or won't buy it, they'll change.
Tell me about how we can convert landfills into a Dan Knapp designed resource recovery park, and what a resource recovery park is and how that works.
Sure. All right, so what we have is, since 1970, is this terrible experiment of putting garbage in the ground. What was that? Just put dirt on top of the organic stuff so there won't any bring birds and flies. We put the first sanitary landfill together in Fresno, California, 1950. I went to work in Fresno, I know the story. Today, it became a national landmark, and then it became a hazardous waste site. Because it's leaking into the groundwater, you can seal it every day on the top, but that won't stop the organics from going into the ground. And then it started making methane, and they started being able to have to capture it, because if the methane goes off the site, it blows up people's homes, so they had to put trenches around the landfill, capture that methane. And in those energy crisis days of the mid-'80s, it was giddy. We looked at 10% energy increase every year as we factored out 20 years in the future. Okay, long story. But the fact is, we have all these landfills that have been permitted all through, and they have garbage in them, and they have been buried. And the only way you remediate an old landfill is you have to dig it out. So here it is. So you put all this time in it. My sense is these are where the composting facilities go. What Dan did, for you viewers out there, Dan is a sociologist with a PhD in 1980, worked for the government, and then got a job in Berkeley at the landfill sorting garbage. So what are you sorting? Well, we're sorting for sale. So he started sorting paper, metal, glass, came up with these 12 categories, but he realized in each category there was stuff that he could sell in itself. It may have been a textile, but it was a nice jacket. So he set up a little shop in front of the landfill. And the shop now is 200,000 square feet. This fits what I say about not getting durables in the landfill. So, okay, you have this space, it's taking up space, it's making methane. You really can't build on top of it because it's constantly sinking. That's where you put your compost facility. You already got it lined, it's already permitted. And then at the same place, that you put a big resource recovery park. Well, what's that? Well, at the landfill, we would have a place where their reusables would go somewhere, paper, metal, glass, textiles, all the 12 categories, a composting area, a ceramics area for rocks. And literally, it's on the same site that used to be the landfill, but now it's called the Resource Recovery Park and the composting facility. And this becomes the infrastructure for recovering these resources for reuse in this closed circle economy. It really takes a small group of people to facilitate change. When we set up free landfills or cheap landfills, we threaten the guy who repairs leather. All the repair guys, all the recycle guys, all the organic guys, we want to get them in the room and say, look, we're going to change it. All this stuff is coming your way. What do you think? What do you need? What do you need from the city in terms of infrastructure, in terms of training and education? What do you need from us? And from that, we'll reorganize it on that. But then there's the general public. So what we see is invite the stakeholders, open up the meetings for the general public. What we want is that when we go to the council with the plan, everybody goes with us. When we went to Oceanside, it was actually beautiful. The schools heard about it. The schools today, zero waste Oceanside School District is a zero waste school district. Why? Because Jenna brought the kids to the meetings when we were talking about the zero waste plans. And the kids got up in front of the advisory board and then the council and said, this is why we should have a zero waste plan. It's all about animals. It's about our future. When a council looks out and sees children saying my future and babies sitting in the audience, what are they going to do? They're going to go against a plan that talks about sustainability? No. Our strategy was, look, if you made it mandatory to recycle, if you made the organics go out, if anybody who builds or destroys has to have a recycling plan, and if anybody sells something in our community, if it's not recyclable or not composted, there's a take-back program, we'll get 90% just by changing the rules. Let your legislature, let your people know that this is what you want. And this is what's going to happen. We're ready. It's an evolutionary thing. And it's just a matter of there will be 10 billion people on this planet in 20 years. And you're going to have to feed them, clothe them, or do something. We've set up a system that says put up as much trash as you want on the street. It ain't no problem. Well, now we want to say make a simple separation. People can do it. People will do it. The only way they're going to do it is if everybody has to do it. But the fact is it's everybody's desire to be as perfect as they can before they die. And so going to zero in terms of your impact on the environment, that's one thing we all can do. We all can take care of our own personal stuff. And our family, and our neighborhood, our job, our city, who knows, our country. I'd like to do that too.